Here I wanted to showcase an interesting experiment by Stanley Zuo, and it was tested on listing pages of Backstage, which is a casting call directory. So you can think of it as like a job site for theater, for movies, for castings. Okay, so here is the control version. Okay, we'll call that A. And what you're seeing is a snippet here of the mobile view of one such kind of listing. But in fact, that kind of, you can imagine that the screen keeps scrolling and there's maybe 10, 20, 30, I can't remember, but multiple of these listings here on each of these screens. And what I think is interesting about this experiment is well, the change itself, but also in how it was set up. And typically what we call this is a cascade experiment. So there's a particular change. So the hypothesis was basically, or the pattern was predicting that if we can show more listings per screen by getting rid of some kind of information here, and basically getting more listings per screen here, then that might have a positive effect. And that's exactly kind of what was set up here. And you can see this kind of gradual magnitude of the change being kind of shown as more and more stuff is removed. So here we have again the control, and variation B. What happened was there's an injection of or a transformation into a more link, so the descriptions are shortened at particular intervals there. Variation C takes this kind of same change, inherits it, cascades it, but does one extra change here. Here you basically don't see these dates and locations, thereby this kind of listing continues to be shortened or condensed. And the same thing happens here. There's the more link, the removal of the dates location, but also the removal of or the kind of collapse of these roles into a single view all details button here. Okay, so very much kind of a cascade here. And the outcome, what was measured initially, was progression or clicks. So clicks are anytime kind of someone opens up these particular kind of role or detail pages, and they kind of go into more detail, into some of these kind of calls to action are also repeated there. There's a bit more information there, and just a very particular to that casting call. And these are clicks. So this is kind of like a shallow metric. And what I find super interesting about this is that there is this kind of graduation of the change, and then we kind of see there's a gradual increase here as well in these kind of relative improvements. So here we see 13, 22, 28. So this setup is giving us a sense that not only is whether something a particular change is good or bad or better or worse, but it also opens up the possibility to measure thresholds for some of these kind of changes, right? And in this case, this kind of threshold is very much continues on. It's kind of like linear in a way, right? What we're seeing here, but maybe in other occasions, if you set up your experiments in such a way, maybe you might see that there might be limits or to where how short these things can be, or interestingly, maybe in certain cases, maybe if too much information is removed, then maybe you might have like negative effects at some thresholds, right? So this type of experiment setup allows you to kind of measure and get a sense of that. And I think that's super interesting in how this was set up by Stanley here. But of course, this is a micrometric, or a kind of a shallow metric, what we'll call. And there's also more deeper metrics, such as subscription starts. So a subscription start is essentially triggered anytime someone's logged out, and it's triggered by either the kind of apply buttons, right? And imagine it kind of opens up a flow, numerous page kind of flow, where basically these are turned into members or paying members or customers that gain access for, I don't know, 30 days or a couple of months or so forth for into the repository. So that is a very meaningful metric. Of course, this is something want to optimize for, not just people opening up roles or casting calls. And this call to action is visible here, but also on these role pages, right? So remember that these role pages also have these kind of calls to action that eventually lead to to becoming members. So here, of course, we see a fuller picture of what's happening, and unfortunately here, this kind of effect, even though more people clicked into these role pages, we have a very insignificant effect, essentially a flat result with maybe -1%, plus 0.5%. So there's so much noise here that we'll say there's no difference here. So unfortunately, people weren't motivated to take that kind of step forward into the subscription flow. Although we do see a very dramatic downgrade here for actual subscription sales starts. And maybe one reason why that's happening is that notice that these apply buttons were also removed in variation D. So these are also triggering these subscription starts, right? Perhaps that's one explanation for this significant drop. Either way, I think this is, again, super interesting in how you can creatively set up your experiments, and you can go beyond just traditional simple A/B, but also check for magnitude of the change. How intense is that change, right? And these kind of experiment setups will allow you to measure that. So again, big thanks to Stanley Zuo here for sharing these tests, and I also linked up to these. These are hosted on our platform with a bunch of other similar experiments such as these under this particular pattern. And basically we compare them to get a sense of a predicted impact and make estimations for future experiments. So hopefully this was inspiring and useful. Leave some comments, I'll answer. And yeah, thanks for watching.